My first memories, I guess, of this community go back to sometime mid-1990. It was, I guess, sometime in the summer. And just the opportunity to walk through the community and mingle with youth. I remember interacting with, at that time, a small organization that was really interested in finding ways for young mothers to come together and to provide opportunities for socialization. While that was in motion, in one of our conversations, we drifted into a dialogue about how to support men in the community, who in some cases young fathers, but who were not necessarily afforded the same opportunities, the same space to socialize and to have conversations about parenting. So in trying to think through how to do this, we decided to organize an evening for the men to come out to just talk, to cook, play dominoes, and some of the most interesting conversations about parenting and about life in the community actually surfaced during those domino sessions. The client base for the Center for Community Learning and Development really is anyone in the community who is interested in academic upgrading first and foremost, because that is rooted in the history of the organization. We started off as a literacy organization. We saw what we call one of the elements as learner-centeredness. We saw another element being literacy from a critical perspective, in that we wanted people to be able to reflect on their situation and to think of ways to take action. And we also saw community building as important elements of that work. About 5 years ago, we expanded that base to include a focus on women who are from diverse backgrounds, who are interested in playing a role in leadership development. And we particularly, we were very deliberate about focusing on women who are newcomer women, partly because we have a sense that in many respects, when we try to reflect on meaningful community building efforts, it seems to make sense to focus on the women. It's really hard for me just to come up with one word that I can use to describe Regent Park or Moss Park or St. Jamestown. However, what does come to mind is can-do spirit. The challenge is often, though, that when we think of multiculturalism and we think of food very often and people from different cultures, unfortunately that's where we draw the line. We don't necessarily go beyond the celebration to actually use the opportunity to have conversations about how to foster a greater sense of community spirit.
So as you probably know, we have recently changed our name to the Toronto Centre for Community Learning and Development. And that's not just a name change, but a change or an expansion of our vision. So I think the next 5 years are going to be extremely interesting. We are going to move away from just delivering literacy services or academic upgrading services to move into the area of leadership development, community development, capacity building, in the hopes of achieving transformational change in the neighbourhood. Our goal is to see change within the community, and not just little changes, but to see something fundamental, to see a transformation change at 3 different levels. The learners and trainees at the association, at the level of the agency and other community agencies, and then up to the level of the community itself. And so our vision is an approach to look at all three of those levels and to develop the capacity of the individuals, of our organization and the other organizations in the community, so as to develop the capacity of the community as a whole. Now is a great time because Regent Park is undergoing a redevelopment, so it makes sense from the community perspective. It makes sense because our organization has the capacity, and we have the recognition that we've got the capacity to try and enact or enhance this change.
Learning is all about changing behavior. There are lots of things that have to change because of externalities. And Regent Park is no exception to that. The fact that you can't bring an ever-growing number of cars into a city like Toronto, that you have to change the design to make it natural for people to change their behavior. You can't force people to change their behaviors, but you can make it much more inviting for people to do things in ways that will turn out to be better for them, better for the city, and not so bad for the planet. So there are always these kinds of externalities. So the residential neighborhood is perfectly nice, but there are bigger externalities that say you just can't stay like that forever.
I think from a community level, change and transformation, more than anything else, is about people being able to have choices. So people being able to have the whole range of opportunities open to them, and more than anything else, people being able to live up to their potential. I would have to say that my experience of working with newcomer communities and teaching at Seneca College, women who have been in Canada maybe for 2 years or so, is that there is tremendous potential in people coming from all over the world here. And I think what our vision needs to be, and the change that needs to happen on the ground, is that all institutions, large and small, need to support the potential that's out there in the community.
Okay, let's start. When we do our leadership training, one of the things we introduced is what we call an environmental scan. And essentially what it boils down to is every time we meet, people in the group, the women would have to talk about anything they've seen, they've heard, that they feel, or that they've experienced really, that has a positive or a negative impact on the community. Which essentially means that they have to now have their eyes open. They have to listen. They have to be in sync with what's happening in the community, so that on a daily basis at each training session, they're able to talk about what they're seeing, hearing, and feeling, and the impact that it can have. And over a period of time, what it did to them is made them more aware of their environment. And when they were asked to reflect on the benefits of doing the environmental scan, that's what they all said, that all of a sudden they just know what's happening around them, whereas previously it's, you're walking down the street, you're totally oblivious to everything around you. So it's really providing people with those tools which helps to bring about a shift in how they are in the world. So it's being more aware of my environment and having a perspective on it, as opposed to just being in there and being a product of it.
In order for the organizations, for example, currently active in Regent Park, to be aligned with the Regent Park community life, it's critical that those organizations remain community-based, or are community-based and community-focused. It's critical that as one of those organizations, we are constantly listening to the people to whom we are providing services, and that there's communication, of course, is a two-way street, and that we are listening to the people to whom we are providing services. And even more than that the community itself become the provider of services to for itself. So our thinking is that that's the very best way to give people or to provide for people the services they require, and to create that type of transformational change, to develop the leadership skills and the strength and the capacity of people in the community.
Ghettoization of anything or any groups on any basis, to my mind, is a limiting. It may solve a certain problem for a short time, but it's a very limited and short-sighted view to anything.
What's a long-sighted view?
A long-sighted view is to make sure that where immigrants are going to come, and they will come to certain places because they will find fellow countrymen and women or whatever, but a place where they'll feel welcome at first. But it has to be a place where it's easy to then slowly, as you build your confidence and your skills, to branch out. There are areas that have been, wave after wave of immigrants have come in, but they were relatively easy to move out of and to get integrated further and further afield as one became more comfortable, more successful, and more skilled at negotiating, interacting with the new city that people had adopted. If Regent Park is providing a more porous environment where people can move in and out of all kinds of people, then I think it's going to make it easier for new immigrants to even moving within the community, but then moving beyond it.
My impression of what the various visions are in that community are that it could become a place of employment, so that people both live and work in the neighborhood, and I believe that that is something that the center is striving towards in their Immigrant Women Integration Program, so that it actually becomes a program that works with women, that builds on their assets, but then has a longer reach into the community so that those women can find jobs in the community agencies that serve the park. I think in terms of TCHC's vision for the whole redevelopment, I'd say it is probably a return to some of the mixed income hopes that used to foster neighborhood development in Toronto, but it's with a smarter, more strategic eye.
The certain priority neighborhoods really is about a recognition that for many, many years a lot of resources have been put into supporting the development of a social infrastructure within the city of Toronto, particularly in the downtown core, that really helps to support agencies such as ours and others to deliver needed social services to residents. It's a recognition that while this has been, that social infrastructure has been developed within the city, the downtown core, that in a lot of the suburbs, in Scarborough, in North Etobicoke, Jane and Finch, that some of that social infrastructure in some cases does not exist, and where it does exist, it's not supported to the same extent, or has not been supported historically to the same extent as the downtown core. So it's a deliberate decision on the part of funders really to target 13 priority neighborhoods that are essentially communities outside of the downtown core, where there are residents and people who need the same levels of support. So what we're envisioning is that in the next, hopefully over the next 3 years, we will actually be active in all of those communities, providing that same level of support, that same level of training as we've been doing in Moss Park, Regent Park, and St. Jamestown. And what we are hoping is that part of that training would create an opportunity for those individuals to create what we are calling leadership learning circles in each of their communities.
When I first started volunteering as a tutor at CCLD, I was tutoring a woman from the Native community. There's still a very strong Native population in that neighborhood, but it has changed and it's diversified over the years. Some organizations get program funding and they keep on running the same program year after year for the same population, and sometimes numbers go up and sometimes numbers go down. They don't read the ethnography, if you like, of their neighborhood and translate that into programs and changes. And that's what I've seen CCLD do. As just one example, moving from serving the Native community, which was a certain population of their literacy group, where they're now serving women who are new to Canada from a wide range of cultural backgrounds. So to go from Indigenous population to newcomer population is a big shift, and their programming has reflected it, and I think their funding and their success has followed it.
Services. The community itself become the provider of services.
Behavior. Learning is all about changing behavior.
Potential. People being able to live up to their potential.
Spirit, can-do spirit.
Services.
Learning.
Spirit.
Potential.
I just look at the community here at Ryerson where I teach and work as an administrator. The changes here in the student body have been astonishing. I mean, even in my short time here, and I've only been here for 13 years, but even in that short time, we've seen tremendous change in the diversity of our student population. What's been a bit more challenging, and I think it's because of the time lags involved, it's been more challenging to find staff, and particularly faculty, who also, represent this diversity. It's happening though. Students who come here from different ethnic and racial groups are starting to see, oh, there's some faculty are from communities like mine. When people are coming from different communities and are now part of the faculty and the staff, they're starting to share worldviews with all the students from everywhere that are much more diverse than they might have got 25 years ago. The organization formerly called East End Literacy is an organization that for many years was focused very much on providing the educational tools for students to go on to be able to participate effectively in higher levels of education. Students came at different levels and left at different levels, but we've certainly seen quite a number of graduates of that program go on to college, successfully complete programs, and we've had some at Ryerson. To me, that's extremely exciting. It isn't the only thing that East End was trying to achieve, but it's one example of how successful they've been.
In the last 2 years, what we've seen is a major shift on the part of major funders, the United Way, the City of Toronto, the Trillium Foundation, where they're talking more and more about the need to build capacity within community. And I think that shift is significant because it's happening right across the GTA, and that is why, for example, we're talking about the 13 priority neighborhoods. But it's not only about building the social infrastructure in those 13 priority neighborhoods. It's about building the space and creating the opportunities and providing the training and leadership development that will help residents develop that can-do spirit and that sense of optimism, and to play a more meaningful role in changing and transforming their particular neighborhoods. We're not only interested in bringing about changes in people's lives, we're also interested in helping people develop the capacity to bring about changes in their own lives. For us, that is going the extra step.
If today's history books are computers, then tomorrow's historians are
Computer chips.
Bright kids who know how to use those computers.
Computer analysts.
They're still historians to me, because I think about the substance of what they do, not the tools they use.
When I read, I imagine the world, but when I dream, I
Imagine the future.
I imagine a parallel world.
I think of a global village.
I act in the world.
Some say geometry was the first mathematics, but I say mathematics was
Geometry.
No, pass on that one.
Was the last thing.
Trying to figure out how to go twice in half the opposite direction.
If a picture says 1,000 words, those words are saying.
Those words are recreating an image.
Those words are providing meaning to the picture.
Look at me.
Can I pause or skip?
In literary terms, the expression O is usually an effect caused by a prior experience or expression. What do you suppose the prior expression may have been in the case of O Canada?
This is something that we're praising in this song.
Can you do that again?
Oh, brother.
I'll just skip that.
The definition of a regent is a person appointed to administer a state because the monarch is a minor or is absent or incapacitated. Do you believe that the monarch will come of age and sit at her post in our lifetime?
Then I certainly hope so.
Not in our lifetime, maybe in 2050, because he's too old.
So who's the monarch?
The monarch is already of age.